Ambassador Li Minjae walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber. Her black uniform was clean and pressed, with the blue Earth symbol on her shoulder shining under the bright lights. Behind her walked Captain Kim Do-hyun and Dr. Park Naeon. All three humans kept their faces calm, but their hearts were beating fast. The chamber was huge, bigger than any building on Earth. Hundreds of alien beings sat in curved rows that went up to the ceiling. Some looked like giant insects with too many eyes. Others were made of crystal that glowed from inside. A few looked almost human but had blue or green skin. Minji had been coming to this place for 3 years. 3 long years of meetings, presentations, and polite conversations. 3 years of trying to make friends with beings who looked at humans like they were pets that had learned to talk. She walked to the center of the room where a small platform waited. Her footsteps echoed in the quiet space. Every alien eye was watching her, some with curiosity, others with what looked like amusement, and a few with something that might have been disgust. The head speaker for the hegemony was a creature that looked like a praying mantis the size of a small car. Its multiple eyes focused on Minjae as it spoke through a translator device that made its voice sound metallic and cold. "The human delegation returns to us again," it said, and several aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. "How entertaining. 3 years of your gifts and your requests. 3 years of watching you beg for a seat at the adult table." Minjae felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her expression neutral. She had practiced this many times in the mirror. Never show anger. Never show fear. Always stay diplomatic. "The humans offer much to the galactic community," she said in a clear voice. "Our medical research has found cures for diseases that affect many of your worlds. Our energy technology could power entire star systems. Our cultural achievements show that we are ready to join the civilized galaxy." A creature made of living crystal pulsed with bright light as it laughed. "Cultural achievements, you mean your tendency to kill each other over patches of dirt? Your wars that lasted for centuries? Your weapons that could destroy entire planets?" Other aliens joined in the laughter. The sound filled the chamber like the buzzing of angry bees. Dr. Park stepped forward and activated a small device. A hologram appeared showing human cities, art, music, and scientific discoveries. "We have grown beyond our violent past," she said. "We seek knowledge, peace, and cooperation with all species." "Irrelevant," said another hegemony representative, this one looking like a large slug with tentacles instead of arms. "Your species is too young, too aggressive, too unpredictable. You cannot be trusted with the responsibilities of galactic citizenship." The mantis-like leader raised one of its sharp arms for silence. The laughter stopped immediately. "The hegemony has made its decision," it announced. "Humanity will accept protective oversight from the Council. Your expanding colonies in the outer systems will be redistributed to more suitable species. Your military forces will be disbanded and replaced with peacekeeping units under our command." Minjae felt her blood turn cold. "And if we refuse?" "Then, corrective action will be taken," the crystal being said, pulsing with ominous red light. "Your people will be relocated to designated areas where they can be properly supervised until they learn civilized behavior." Captain Kim took a small step forward, his hand moving toward his sidearm. Minjae held up her hand slightly, stopping him. "Not yet. Not here. We request the standard 30-day consideration period to consult with our government," she said formally. "Granted," the mantis leader said with what might have been a smile. "Use the time wisely. Learn to accept your place in the natural order." As the 3 humans turned to leave, Minjae heard one of the aliens whisper to another, "30 days to prepare the camps. These uplifted monkeys need to learn respect for their betters." The words hit Minjae like a physical blow, but she kept walking. Her footsteps were steady, her back straight, her head held high. Behind her, she could hear the aliens returning to their conversations, already dismissing the human delegation as unimportant. They walked through the long corridors in silence until they reached their ship. Only when the doors closed behind them did any of them speak. "They were never going to accept us as equals," Dr. Park said quietly. "This was all just a game to them. Captain Kim checked his weapons automatically. 3 years of intelligence gathering, he said. At least it wasn't wasted time. Min-jae sat down heavily in her chair and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human colonies were expanding. Human families were building new lives on distant worlds. Human children were growing up believing that the galaxy was a place where different species could live together in peace. She activated her communication device. This is Ambassador Min-jae to Earth Command. Begin Protocol 7 immediately. Full. Authorization code follows. She paused, thinking about all the diplomatic training, all the peace treaties, all the careful words and polite smiles. Tell them we tried, she said quietly. We tried diplomacy. Now we do what humans do best. The message went out across space at the speed of light, carrying news that would change everything. The time for talking was over. 28 days had passed since the hegemony gave humanity their ultimatum. Ambassador Lee Min-jae walked back into the Galactic Council chamber, but this time everything felt different. The air seemed heavier. The alien faces looked more smug and confident than before. Captain Kim Do-hyun followed close behind her, his hand resting on his weapon. Dr. Park Nyon carried a data pad filled with intercepted messages that would change everything. They had spent almost a month learning the terrible truth about what the aliens really planned. The mantis-like hegemony leader clicked its mandibles together in what passed for laughter. The humans return with their answer. How delightful. We trust you have seen reason and will accept our generous offer of protection. Min-jae stopped in the center of the chamber. She looked up at the hundreds of alien faces staring down at her. Many were already celebrating, sure that the weak humans would surrender without a fight. Before we give our answer, Min-jae said in a clear voice, we have some questions about your recent activities, the crystal being pulsed with annoyed red light. Questions? You are here to give us your surrender, not to waste our time with more human curiosity. Dr. Park stepped forward and activated her holographic display. Images appeared in the air showing alien warships moving through space. The ships were heading toward human colonies. These are your fleets, Dr. Park said. They began moving toward our territory 26 days ago. 2 days after you gave us 30 days to decide. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some aliens looked surprised. Others looked uncomfortable. The hegemony leaders remained silent. More interesting, Min-jae continued, is what happened to our colony ship New Sol. 1,500 civilians, including families with young children, were supposed to reach the Kepler system yesterday. She paused and looked directly at the Mantis leader. Instead, they were intercepted by your ships and taken to what you call processing facilities. The slug-like hegemony representative waved its tentacles dismissively. Temporary holding areas, while proper arrangements are made. Standard procedure for relocated populations. Relocated? Captain Kim spoke for the first time, his voice tight with controlled anger. These were families moving to an empty world that we had terraformed ourselves. What gives you the right to relocate them? The right of the superior over the inferior, the crystal being said, flashing bright white. Your species lacks the wisdom to govern itself. We provide guidance. Dr. Park activated another display. This one showed the inside of the so-called processing facilities. Humans were crowded into small spaces behind energy barriers. Children were crying. Adults looked scared and confused. This is your idea of protection? Min-jae asked. Cages? Temporary accommodations, the Mantis leader repeated. They will be released when suitable worlds are found for them under proper supervision. Min-jae felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. She had hoped, really hoped, that there might still be a chance for peace. But the evidence was clear. The aliens had never intended to negotiate. They had been planning to attack from the very beginning. We brought gifts, Dr. Park said, activating one final display. Medical technology that could save millions of lives across your worlds. Energy systems that could power your civilizations for thousands of years. Art and music and literature that could enrich your cultures. The hologram showed human achievements. Cities that floated in the clouds. Medicines that could cure diseases that had plagued alien worlds for centuries. Beautiful art and music that had moved even some aliens to tears during the cultural exchanges. All of this, Minjay said, we offered freely. No payment required. No conditions except friendship and equal treatment. The chamber fell quiet. Even some of the alien representatives seemed to be reconsidering their positions, but the hegemony leaders were unmoved. Trinkets, the crystal being said with a dismissive pulse. Pretty toys from a species that spent most of its history killing each other. Your aggressive nature makes you unsuitable for civilized society. The mantis leader leaned forward on its platform. Perhaps when the uplifted primates learn their proper place in the natural order, they may be allowed limited freedom under appropriate guidance. The words hit the chamber like a thunderbolt. Several aliens shifted uncomfortably. Even they seemed to realize that the insult had gone too far. But for Minjay, those words changed everything. 3 years of careful diplomacy. 3 years of patient explanation. 3 years of hoping that reason and kindness could build bridges between species. All of it had been worthless, because the aliens had never seen humans as equals. She stood quietly for a long moment, feeling the weight of decision settling on her shoulders. Behind her, Captain Kim's breathing had changed. Dr. Park had gone completely still. When Minjay finally spoke, her voice was different. Colder. Harder. We came here 3 years ago seeking partnership, she said. We offered cooperation, trade, friendship, everything that civilized species should share with each other. She looked up at the alien faces surrounding her. You have shown us that you only understand one language. You mistake kindness for weakness. You confuse patience with cowardice. The silence in the chamber was complete now. Even the constant humming of the translation devices seemed quieter. Message received, Minjay said simply. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the exit. Captain Kim and Dr. Park fell, into step behind her. Their footsteps echoed in the silent chamber as hundreds of aliens watched them leave. As the doors closed behind them, emergency sessions began convening across human space. The time for words had ended. Fleet Admiral Cho Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of the battleship Incheon's Pride, staring at the tactical displays that covered every wall. Red dots showed alien fleets moving toward human space. Green dots showed human ships that had been hiding in the darkness between stars for months. The waiting was finally over. Admiral, called Captain Yoon Hanul from her station. All ships report ready. Protocol 7 is active across the entire fleet. Ji-hoon nodded slowly. Protocol 7 was humanity's most closely guarded secret. For 3 years, while diplomats had been talking and smiling and offering gifts, human intelligence agents had been working. Every cultural exchange had been a spy mission. Every trade discussion had gathered information about alien technology. Every friendly conversation had mapped alien psychology and found their weaknesses. Lieutenant Han Soo-jin looked up from her communications panel, her young face hard with determination. Sir, we're receiving reports from all sectors. The rescue operations are beginning now. The first priority was always bringing their people home. The 1,500 colonists from the New Sol were locked in alien cages, but not for much longer. Human special forces had been planning their rescue for weeks. Processing facility Omega-7 is under attack, reported Major Park Sun-woo. Strike. Team Alpha reports no resistance. The aliens weren't expecting us. On the main screen, Ji-hoon watched live footage from the rescue operation. Human soldiers in powered armor were cutting through energy barriers like they were made of paper. The aliens had built their prisons assuming that humans were primitive and helpless. They were learning how wrong they had been. All colonists from New Sol recovered safely, came the next report. Medical teams are treating minor injuries. No casualties among our people. Ji-hoon allowed himself a small smile. The aliens thought humans were violent and aggressive. But the first thing humanity did in war was save innocent lives. Even their own people came before revenge. But now came the harder part. Target the communication hubs, Ji-hoon ordered. Cut off their ability to coordinate their fleets. What happened next would have been impossible without 3 years of careful preparation. Human computer viruses. hidden in innocent-looking cultural files, activated simultaneously across alien networks. Communication systems that had worked perfectly for thousands of years suddenly went silent. Sector 7 communication hub is offline, reported technical specialist O. Taman. Sectors 12, 15, and 23 are also dark. The hegemony fleets are flying blind. The aliens had always dismissed human artificial intelligence as crude and dangerous. They preferred biological computers that were slower, but more predictable. They never understood that humans had built their AI systems to be unpredictable, because unpredictability was a weapon. Admiral, called Lieutenant Commander Jung Yejin, excitement clear in her voice. We're getting surrender signals from the Rigel Defense Fleet. They're requesting immediate ceasefire talks. Ji-hoon was not surprised. The psychological profiles that human diplomats had built over 3 years of conversations were paying off. Many alien species had been forced to join the hegemony against their will. They had been waiting centuries for someone strong enough to challenge their oppressors. Send a response, Ji-hoon ordered. Tell them that any species that surrenders peacefully will be offered protection and alliance terms. We're not here to conquer anyone. We're here to free them. The tactical display updated as more alien fleets began switching sides. The Centauri Defense League, oppressed by the hegemony for over 200 years, was openly joining the human forces. The bird-like Avari had declared their independence and were attacking hegemony supply lines. Sir, reported Captain Kim Min-seok, from the weapons station, enemy battle group Delta 3 is requesting permission to surrender. They say they have human prisoners and want to turn them over safely. Granted, Ji-hoon said immediately. Send medical ships to receive our people. What the aliens had failed to understand was that humans had spent thousands of years fighting wars against other humans. Every trick, every strategy, every psychological tactic had been tested in countless battles across Earth's bloody history. The hegemony species had spent the same time ruling over helpless civilizations that couldn't fight back. Admiral, called Sergeant Lee Hayan from the intelligence station, decoded alien communications show complete panic in their command structure. They're calling this an impossible victory. Ji-hoon studied the battle reports flowing across his screens. Human casualties were surprisingly light. Alien military losses were heavy, but civilian casualties were almost zero. That was the difference between conquest and liberation. The hegemony's main battle fleet is retreating from the Vega system, reported Commander Park Ji-won. They're abandoning 3 major military bases without a fight. The most important victory wasn't military, though. It was political. As news of human successes spread, more and more alien species were rising up against their hegemony oppressors. The galaxy was discovering that the mighty hegemony could be defeated. Sir, incoming message from Earth Command, announced the communications officer. They're asking for a status report to send to the Galactic Council. Ji-hoon thought about Ambassador Min-jae and her 3 years of patient diplomacy. All those aliens who had laughed at human offers of friendship. All those species who had dismissed humanity as primitive and worthless. Tell Earth Command that the mission is proceeding as planned, he said. The galaxy is learning that humanity kept our best weapons hidden. Our diplomats weren't weak. They were gathering intelligence. Our peaceful nature isn't weakness. It's what makes us strong enough to fight only when we have to. The war was far from over, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had tried talking. Now they were showing the galaxy what happened when talking failed. 6 months had passed since the first human rescue operations began. Commander Lee Hayan stood in what had once been the hegemony's most secure military base, a massive space station that could house 50,000 soldiers. Now it flew human. Colors and alien prisoners worked alongside human engineers to repair the damage from the brief battle that had taken it. The station hadn't fallen through destruction. The humans had done something the aliens never expected. They had offered mercy to anyone who surrendered. Final casualty reports, Commander, said Sergeant Kim Min-seok, looking up from his data pad with amazement in his voice. Total enemy military. Deaths across all operations, 847,000. Civilian casualties, 0. Hayan nodded as she studied the holographic displays showing the new shape of the galaxy. The 3 species that had formed the hegemony were no longer united. The insect-like Zephyrians had completely surrendered and were begging for protection. Treaties. The crystal beings called Luminar had split into two factions, with the larger group asking to join the human alliance. Only the slug-like hegemony still resisted, and they were running out of friends. "Ma'am, we have 17 more star systems requesting surrender term," reported Lieutenant Young Yejin. "They want the same deal we gave the Rigel Republic. Full independence in exchange for promises to never attack civilian populations." The transformation had been swift and shocking. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years were now working together. The secret was something the hegemony had never understood. Fear could make people obey, but respect made them want to. "Help, Commander," called technical specialist Otaman from his workstation. "I finished analyzing the captured hegemony military databases. You need to see this." Heiyun walked over to look at the data. What she saw explained everything. "They haven't fought a real war in over 2,000 years, she said quietly. Every military action was just beating up helpless planets that couldn't fight back. The hegemony had grown soft and stupid from centuries of easy victories. Their tactics were designed for crushing the weak, not fighting an enemy that could hit back. When humans had started fighting like humans always fought, smart, dirty, and without mercy for those who threatened innocent people, the aliens had no idea how to respond. "The psychological warfare is working perfectly," reported Captain Park Ji-won as he approached with intelligence reports. "The data we gathered during those cultural exchanges is paying off. We know exactly what scares each species and what they want most. The bird-like Avari wanted freedom to fly between the stars without permission. The rock people called Granite wanted to be left alone to build their cities in peace. The water dwellers called Aquari wanted clean oceans on their worlds. Humans had offered all of these things in exchange for friendship. The hegemony had offered only control and fear. "Ma'am," announced Communications Officer Lee Jae-hyun, "we're receiving a priority message from the remaining hegemony leadership. They want to discuss terms for a ceasefire." Heiyun almost laughed. 6 months ago, these same aliens had been planning to put humans in cages and treat them like pets. Now they wanted to negotiate. "What kind of terms?" she asked. "They're offering to recognize human independence and stop all military operations against our colonies," Jae-hyun said, reading from his screen. "In exchange, they want us to stop supporting rebel movements in their territory." "Rebel movements?" Heiyun raised an eyebrow. "You mean the 43 species that have declared independence from hegemony rule since we started winning?" Captain Park smiled grimly. "They still don't understand. We're not supporting rebels. We're liberating slaves." The truth was that humans had barely needed to encourage the rebellions. After seeing that the mighty hegemony could be defeated, oppressed species across the galaxy had started fighting for their own freedom. All humans had to do was provide weapons and advice. "There's more," Jae-hyun continued. "The hegemony is also offering to return all human prisoners and pay compensation for damages to our colonies." Heiyun thought about the 1,500 colonists from the New Sol who had spent weeks in alien cages, about the families who had been separated and the children who had cried themselves to sleep in prison cells, about Ambassador Min-jae and her 3 years of patient diplomacy that the aliens had thrown away. "Send them our terms," she said finally. "Complete dissolution of the hegemony political structure. Full independence for all member species. War crimes trials for anyone who ordered attacks on civilian populations. And formal apologies to every species they've oppressed." "Commander," said Lieutenant Jung Yejin carefully, "those terms are basically demanding their complete surrender." "Yes," Heiyun replied. "They are." The alien messenger waited nervously as the human terms were transmitted. When the response came, back an hour later, it was predictable. "They reject our terms," Jae-hyun reported. "They say humans are being unreasonable, and that we should remember our place in the galactic order." Heiyun sighed. Even facing complete defeat, the aliens still couldn't accept that humans were their equals. Some people, it seemed, could only learn lessons the hard way. "Resume military operations," she ordered. "Target their remaining command centers. And send a message to all the newly independent species. Ask them if they want to join a real galactic council, one based on cooperation instead of domination. The old galaxy was dying. But from its ashes, something better was being born. 1 year after the first rescue operations, Ambassador Li Minjie walked back into the Galactic Council chamber. But everything had changed. The old curved rows where aliens had looked down at humans like they were amusing pets were gone. Instead, a large circular table sat in the center of the room, with every seat at the same level. Representatives from 47 different species sat around the table. Many were species that had been slaves under the old hegemony. Others were former hegemony members who had chosen cooperation over conquest. At the head of the table sat a being that had lived under alien rule for 3 centuries before humanity changed everything. The council recognizes Ambassador Minjie of the Terran Federation, announced the moderator, a tall creature with silver skin who had once been a hegemony prisoner. Minjie stood up, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. The same aliens who had called humans uplifted primates now listened to her words with respect and attention. The change had not come from fear, but from gratitude and genuine admiration. The Galactic Cooperative's first year has exceeded all our hopes, she began, gesturing to holographic displays that showed the new galaxy. Trade between species has increased by 400%. Joint research projects have eliminated 17 major diseases. Our shared defense force has stopped 83 pirate attacks without a single civilian casualty. The displays showed amazing things. Avari bird people were teaching humans how to build cities in the clouds. Human doctors were working with crystal beings to create new medicines. Rock people were sharing mining techniques while humans helped them clean polluted worlds. A familiar figure raised a claw for attention. It was the mantis-like creature that had once been the hegemony's main speaker, but now it wore simple clothes instead of the fancy robes of power, and its voice was humble instead of arrogant. Ambassador Minjie, it said carefully, my people still struggle to understand how humans achieved such rapid victory. Our best military analysts have studied the war for months, but the speed of your success defies explanation. Several other former hegemony representatives nodded in agreement. They genuinely seemed confused about how they had lost so completely and so quickly. Minjie looked around the table at all the faces watching her. Some were curious, others grateful, a few still slightly fearful. She chose her words carefully. You made a fundamental mistake, she said simply. You assumed that diplomacy was weakness, that our offers of friendship were signs that we were helpless and desperate. She activated a display showing the timeline of the war. Every cultural exchange we made was also an intelligence operation. Every gift we offered let us study your technology. Every friendly conversation taught us how your minds work and what you feared most. The former hegemony members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They were beginning to understand how completely they had been outplayed. But the real reason we won, Minjie continued, is that you never understood what strength actually means. She changed the display to show human rescue operations, soldiers fighting desperately to save alien civilians from burning buildings, medical teams treating enemy wounded before their own people, engineers working day and night to rebuild destroyed alien cities. You thought strength meant making others afraid of you, she said. Real strength means being willing to fight for people who cannot fight for themselves. It means keeping your word even when it costs you. It means treating former enemies with mercy when they surrender. The crystal being that had once mocked human achievements pulsed with soft blue light. But how did you defeat our technology so easily? Our computers were supposed to be unhackable. Dr. Park Naeon, who was attending as a technical advisor, stood up to answer. Your computers were designed to be perfect and predictable. Ours were designed to be unpredictable and adaptable. In war, unpredictability wins. But more importantly, Minjie added, we had something you didn't have. We had allies who wanted to help us because we had helped them first. The room fell quiet as everyone considered this. Under the old hegemony, species had been forced to obey through fear. Under the new cooperative, they chose to work together because it made everyone stronger. A young representative from a species that had only recently gained space travel raised her hand. What happens to species that don't want to join the cooperative? Are they forced to comply? No, Minjay said firmly. Freedom includes the freedom to be left alone. Any species that wants to govern itself without interference is welcome to do so. We only ask that they don't attack others. The former slug-like hegemony leader, one of the few that had survived the war, spoke in a bitter voice. And if they do attack others? Minjay's expression became serious. Then they learn why. Humans are so good at war. We've been practicing on each other for thousands of years. The chamber remained silent as the implications settled. Humanity offered friendship and cooperation to anyone who wanted it, but they also offered swift and overwhelming force to anyone who threatened innocent people. We tried diplomacy first, Minjay concluded, looking directly at the former hegemony representatives. We gave you every chance to choose partnership over domination. When you rejected peace, you discovered why talking is always our first choice, but never our only choice. As she sat down, representatives from dozens of worlds rose in respectful silence. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their technology. It was their wisdom to know when words were enough, and when action became necessary. The age of the hegemony was over. The age of cooperation had begun.